Welcome to your post-daily news show for Monday, May the 16th. I am John Pollock, along with Wai Ting. We are coming off what had to have been the hottest day of the year on Sunday, and today it's freezing with rain, a perfect Toronto weekend, complete with the Toronto Maple Leafs thrown out of the playoffs in the first round. Like this, we hit all the notes of a Toronto spring.
A classic Toronto week. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, weather that is as diverse as the people that live within it.
Did you catch any of the hockey game? Did you get swept into Game 7 fever? Or did you just say, you know what? Call me when there's a game in June. Because May, not a chance.
I planned to watch it, but I ended up having other plans. So by the time I remembered, they were already done.
Well, I was out on Saturday. I also had other plans and came out. We went to, me and a bunch of my friends, we went to a comedy show. And as we came out, the giant parking lot at John and Richmond was playing the game. And I didn't even realize this is where Davey works as well. And it was an incredible setup. And we ended up watching like the last 5 minutes or so of the game as the clock just clicked down to zero. And I will say, going home on the subway, some very long faces. I mean, this was a depressed crowd. I was like, listen, we've all been through this. It's this is what happens with the Toronto Maple Leafs, but fun nonetheless.
Well, yeah. I mean, I suppose they were leading for a good part of the series, weren't they? Was that the story?
They were up 3-2, and then they lost the last two games.
Just that's it, or were they behind? Okay, so it wasn't.
No,
that
they
big
won.
of a
They
lead.
won the first game. They lost the second. Then they went up 2-1. I can't remember the
Okay,
exact
so a pretty
chronology, but they were up
even
3-2. They had two chances to eliminate them in Game 6 and 7, and lost both of them.
I mean, it's always a bit more heartbreaking to lose a game 7.
Certainly, the NHL has gotten very lucky this year. They had, the Toronto Maple Leafs, especially for Sportsnet here in Canada, they got 7 Toronto Maple Leafs postseason games, which is, I mean, they are the straw that stirs the drink here in Canada when it comes to postseason hockey. But you got 2 overtimes on Sunday with Game 7s. I actually watched the Dallas Calgary game, and then you get Calgary against Edmonton in the second round, so it guarantees you get one Canadian team in the Final Four. It's not the Leafs, but nonetheless, you'll have some Canadian team. And I mean, the NHL playoffs, they're so much bigger up here than in the United States. So, they're just clinging to any Canadian representation to get through these playoffs. But there you go. That is your NHL update.
Thanks.
You think they're going to fire the Leafs coach? Are they going to get rid of anyone, Wade? Do you think there's going to be some spring cleaning? Or do you look at it that, hey, we lost to the defending back-to-back Stanley Cup champions. No harm, no foul. We got 7 games out of this series. Keep on going.
I can't really say I give a shit.
You're so shy when I put you on the spot because before we went live, Wai was talking my ear off about the defense and Campbell's performance throughout the 7 games. Just he gets all talked out before we go live because his analysis is very high when it comes to the Toronto Maple Leafs and their future. But we have lots to get into today. Including off the top, Ric Flair is coming out of retirement again. He's going to have one more match as it is being billed. Ric Flair's final match last match, that has been announced for July the 31st at the Nashville Fairgrounds. This is going to be promoted under Jim Crockett Promotions. And this will be part of Starrcast over SummerSlam weekend, taking place at the Nashville Fairgrounds. And from the press release that they issued earlier today, the Nature Boy Ric Flair, who many consider the greatest professional wrestler of all time, is set to return to the ring one final time as part of Jim Crockett Promotions presents Ric Flair's Last Match wrestling event. Taking place at the world-famous Nashville Fairgrounds, the 16-time former World Heavyweight Champion will don a new custom-made robe and bring the one-of-a-kind showmanship that has made Flair a cultural icon for his over 40 years in the professional wrestling business. Flair stated, "I'm going to walk that aisle one last time to prove once and for all that to be the man, you've got to beat the man." This is going to be streaming on Fight and will be produced by Thuzio, a Triller company. And if ever there was a Triller influence, this is it. So this will be obviously what everything is built around for Starrcast weekend. Ric Flair coming back at the age of 73. This man, to the best of my knowledge, still has a pacemaker that he had inserted. This was after a near-death experience in 2017 where he was in a coma for 10 days. a lot of concern. First, when this footage rose of, we had seen him get a little physical in AAA, but then seeing this of him taking suplexes with Jay Lethal, and then Dave Meltzer reporting that he is in fact training for an in-ring return, and has also speculated that this will likely be a 6-man tag. That I have heard similar, but cannot confirm that. Right now, they are just promoting it as Ric Flair's final match and have not announced the specifics of it. But there's a lot to take away from this way. Most of all is, I think, just the concern of putting a 73-year-old in the ring and, further pushing those limits of what you can do in a quote-unquote controlled environment like professional wrestling, that at the same time is, like, there is no denying the concern that is going to come with this, as well as others that are just going to completely ignore that fact.
Often when we hear about performers coming out of retirement, I mean, it's usually met with a bit of celebration. Like people, depending on the type of retirement. But I mean, in Flair's case, I'm seeing the response be a lot more of concern rather than excitement for something like this. And a lot of people just not necessarily wanting to see even a match like this happen for various reasons, a number of which include what's been personally going on with Ric Flair's reputation ever since the Dark Side of the Ring episode aired, but also, chief concern might be his health as well. I think seeing this footage, knowing that in practice he's probably taken a whole lot, I think I understand why they would feel safe enough to go ahead with one match, bill it as one final match, and probably have it escape without incident. But
would we feel as comfortable going back if Paul Levesque wanted to do this? The guy who said because of a defibrillator that he has that he will never do another wrestling match, and I think it does bring up the question of, in it's like professional wrestling kind of flies under the radar when it comes to, like, yes, there are athletic commissions that oversee professional wrestling, but what is the role of kind of this pseudo sport, pseudo entertainment, and where, somebody in that is not in great health can still do this. And it's sort of, when need be, it's a performance, and in others, it's an athletic endeavor. And this is sort of the mixture of both. I don't think we're looking at this either, that this is a case of Ric Flair coming to do, for instance, what Vince McMahon did at WrestleMania and essentially take a stunner. Ric Flair, I do not think is coming in and taking one spot in this match. I think he is going to want to do more than that. And that ultimately is where you look at, like, what is the responsibility of those putting on this show and that kind of liability. I understand that I don't think it took any convincing on Flair's part to be partaking in this. But at the same time, like, what is the responsibility to overlook this? And that kind of goes back to our conversation we had last Wednesday after Dynamite, that I think we are kind of trained that 9 times out of 10, things turn out okay. But there's always that 1 out of 10 chance. And it just seems like it's that constant, how close to the sun can we fly before a disaster happens? And what would the reaction be afterward when there are so many signs that would be concerning going into this, even if you have a game plan in mind and all of the preventable measures you can, you cannot ultimately control the human body. And this is pushing it to its limit here when we're talking about a 73-year-old that was on the doorstep of death a couple of years ago.
Sure, yeah. No, you're right to ask all these questions. I mean, we do know that it's involved with Starrcast, which is put on by his son-in-law, Conrad Thompson. So one could assume that they've had many discussions about whether or not Rick really wants to do something like this, and I'd be willing to bet that he absolutely really wants to do it. And when you have somebody who, listen, it's his choice. I mean, pro wrestling is not a commission thing in many places, and ultimately, I would hope that he's gotten some sort of doctor's advice about what should be allowed and what might not be, and I would hope that he's and the people that are involved with the match are listening to that advice. And at this point, I mean, it looks like it's going ahead, whether or not, we want it to or not. And it's not really our choice.
If it turns out to be a 6-man tag, does that at all alleviate any
Of course.
concerns? As opposed to going out there and doing a singles match. I think by design that would be the smarter way to go about this. And the other is as well looking at the platform that this is happening on. I would have to imagine that when Ric Flair got out of his relationship with WWE last August, this is a scenario you very well could have seen play out on AEW. And I think that the Dark Side of the Ring episode, I think certainly, gave enough that a WWE and an AEW, they were going to take a step away from a Ric Flair. Do you envision in the lead up to this, you have to think Ric Flair is going to be doing a lot of promotion for this match. Is that story going to resurface from the plane ride from hell that, for those that maybe are not familiar, in that episode, Heidi Doyle, who was the flight attendant on that flight in May of 2002, alleged that Flair had been going around naked on the flight and claiming that he made her touch his genitals, which he has denied that allegation. But nonetheless, that is a story that is very much stuck with Ric Flair. Will that sort of bring that subject back to light when he's going to be, you would think, actively promoting this and doing a lot of media?
I think so. I think anytime you do something of note, relatively, quickly removed from, I think, this happening, which was only back in September, I think there's definitely a chance. Now, I don't think much result will be the same from what had happened at this point.
I to be honest, Way, I don't know how much this is going to come up. If he's doing a lot of media, I don't know how much he's going to be pushed on this. And to the point that maybe that's even a condition of him doing an interview, is that he is not going to talk about Plane Ride from Hell. Just me guessing.
Possibly, yeah.
So anyway, this is July 31st. It's SummerSlam weekend, and I guess now we will await what the announcement will be of the match itself, and I guess building a card around this as well. I mean, do you see this being a success on Fight TV?
I think it depends on the rest of the card. I mean, I think there's a bit of a curiosity to see what Flair looks like. Just judging by maybe some of the initial response, I can't really say that people are going to be looking at this with the same sort of excitement as an AEW pay-per-view or even a big, WrestleMania event level card. Like, it doesn't seem to, I mean, again, we'll see what the rest of the card rounds out to be, but to me, this seems more like a novelty thing that people might just look for clips of.
A Triller event. Like, that's it. It's like you're tuning in for like the sheer shock of what you're watching that you can't turn away, that you are curious one way or the other about this kind of thing. That's certainly what it's leading yourself towards. We will move on from there, from the Ric Flair story. I'm sure we'll talk about that more. We want to wish best wishes to Jim Duggan, who provided an update. He is going to be undergoing radiation treatment over the next he said for the next 8 weeks. This is in relation to the cancer that he had spoken about a number of months ago. And this is his latest battle with cancer. Of course, he had kidney cancer over 2 decades ago when he was still in WCW, and will be undergoing this for the next 8 weeks, 5 days a week, which is just that's an intense treatment plan. But the positive is that he noted that they believe that they have caught it early, so hopefully this is going to have a happy outcome.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, somebody who has had to deal with a lot of issues with cancer throughout his life, and of course we wish him all the strength in the world.
Yes, and also well wishes to Virgil Mike Jones, who has noted he's been diagnosed with stage 2 colon cancer, and there has been a GoFundMe set up for Virgil as well. So our best thoughts to both of those individuals. Over the weekend, New Japan had the Capital Collision show on Saturday night from Washington, D.C. Over 2,000 people in attendance, and it was headlined by Juice Robinson, who won the IWGP United States Championship, pinning Will Ospreay and continuing the theme of Ospreay getting screwed at the end. What happened was Robinson shoved the referee into the way of Ospreay, who was setting up for the hidden blade, and led to a low blow and then his new finisher, and got the win. 15 minutes, 43 seconds that they won.
With Ospreay's foot under the rope.
With the foot under the rope as well. Mm-hmm. So I think based on this booking, I'm thinking Ospreay's winning the G1.
Very possible.
I think he's coming back, and he is going to get his whole reclamation by winning the G1 this summer. That would be my guess of, something big coming Ospreay's way after all of these losses and then going into the tournament with that chip on his shoulder and, booking the G1 around him.
I suppose, like, you would think that he would be going after the U.S. Championship, which he, didn't get a fair shake at properly winning or losing coming out of this. But, I mean, if you're talking about an overall narrative, it doesn't have as much to do with the U.S. title as it does with just Ospreay getting screwed.
The match, of course, also included Hiroshi Tanahashi, who was the champion going in, and Jon Moxley, who, of course, bled in this match. I think that's just part of his stipulation when he's doing a match of this caliber. And featured Tanahashi hitting a high fly flow off the top, putting Moxley through a table on the floor.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, really spectacular match. I mean, all four of these, Ospreay versus Moxley to me was one of the matches of the year that I'm sure I'll be revisiting towards the end. And so there were a lot of callbacks to that particular match itself. You throw in Hiroshi Tanahashi, and there's no way that match can't be better. And also, of course, you have a very much rejuvenated Juice Robinson with a brand new direction and entering really a main event mix for the first time. And I thought they all looked great together.
He had a really good promo afterward, and yeah, you could certainly argue that with Robinson in this new role, he was the one going into this that you could have seen being the one just to sacrifice to take the fall, instead putting him more so on the level of the other three. So I think, Juice Robinson came out of this, and it was, one of his better performances we've seen in a long time. It also saw Kazuchika Okada and replacement partner Rocky Romero losing to Jay White and Hikuleo. Match went 16:04 and ended after multiple counters by Romero and White, ending in the Blade Runner after a Shiranui attempt by Romero, and Romero taking the cover. And then afterwards, Okada confronting Jay White, and they were jumped by Hikuleo, and White grabbed the title, and Tangaloa came out. Hikuleo offered the too sweet, but Tangaloa turned him down, and the family is at odds.
I like it. We're here ultimately talking about a real ascent for Hikuleo into the mix, and I think a great way to do it right now with this sort of, will he join the family or will he join Bullet Club dynamic?
And I only saw the top matches. So the other one I saw was Tomohiro Ishii defeating Eddie Kingston. I thought this was the match of the show of what I saw. 16:07 they went, and they had the very easy story of Kings Road, represented by Kingston, against Ishii and Strong Style. And this to me was the main event inside of the arena. It sounded like this was incredible. Andrew Thompson was at the show. He said this was just a terrific match, the match of the show, and ending after Ishii finally hit the vertical drop brainbuster after overcoming two Hurricanes. And man, I thought both their selling was phenomenal. Ishii just does like the stagger and then the collapse, that here's this guy just squeezing every last drop before he just collapses to the canvas. And we noted that Ian Riccaboni stating that Eddie Kingston's career has taken a long and winding road.
Fantastic.
Which it did last month, yes.
Yes, it did, yeah. As far as like the battle between Kings Road and Strong Style, it's hard for me at this point to determine like what exactly might be influenced by Kings Road and what might be Strong Style. I think it's just really a big mixture, but I'm getting used to basically having a Tomohiro Ishii match of the year candidate every single week now. This man is just like, he's so consistent. And, not to mention all the flights back and forth between this place and Japan. But God, like just in the span of like the last month alone, it feels like he's been stealing every single week. Between the Tanahashi match to like the Josh Alexander match to now this one. It's really incredible.
I think Ishii is probably front runner for Wrestler of the Year at this point, for me at least. Just like, you're right. I mean, after that Josh Alexander match, following it with this, and this is before the G1, which, I mean, is, my God, it's...
He'll probably be on Forbidden Door, you would think.
Yeah, you would think he has a big spot there. Yeah. And also appearing on the show was Leo Rush, who came out after the Ishii-Kingston match and said it felt good to be home. He's not cleared to compete yet, but putting the junior heavyweight division on notice, specifically noting champion Taiji Ishimori, Robbie Eagles, and Hiromu Takahashi, and then joined commentary for the final two matches. So it looks like Leo Rush will be involved in the Best of the Super Juniors, and you would have to think if it wasn't for the injury he probably would have been a candidate for the Best of the Super Juniors.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, the fact that he's not, doesn't take anything away from, I think, people's excitement for him to see him in the mix with, what feels like a really replenished group of junior heavyweights that are a part of the New Japan Pro Wrestling scene right now, and it seems like this is sort of his home promotion now at this point. And as sort of like a featured act of this junior heavyweight division on the U.S. side of things, I mean, you can't get better than Lio Rush.
And the rest of the card featured Brody King beating Minoru Suzuki, Jonah, Shane Haste, Mikey Nichols, and Bad Dude Tito over the United Empire's Jeff Cobb, Aaron Hanare, Kyle Fletcher, and Mark Davis. Chase Owens over the Great O'Khan, Tom Lawler, Royce Isaacs, Jarrell Nelson, JR Kratos, and Danny Limelight over Fred Rosser, David Finley, Tangaloa, Yuya Uemura, and the DKC, and opening with Carl Fredericks beating Ren Narita, and then doing a big title change the next night at the tapings involving Lawler and Fred Rosser. So it seemed like this was a very, very positive show. I did not watch it live, but I didn't see any complaints about streaming issues this time around, which they had to get right after last month. They pretty much promised that there would not be any, which is always, I'd still be nervous if I was promising no technical issues. I mean, as you and I could attest on Friday night.
Yeah. No matter how maybe good your track record might be, something always can happen. So it's always good to have backups. But yeah, I've heard nothing but positive praise for this show.
And then quickly, I did get to watch the tournament matches on Sunday for the Best of the Super Juniors, 5 A-block matches, and it featured Ace Austin. Pretty much for the first show, it was establishing the ones either making their debuts or outsiders, or in the case of some, both. So you had Ace Austin representing Impact, who beat Clark Connors after stopping... he went for the fold, and Connors stopped him with a spear, but then Austin hit the House of Cards and then hit the fold to win this match in 9 minutes and 57 seconds. Ace Austin has a real great presence about him, as does Clark Connors, but I think this is going to be a big spotlight for Ace Austin being earmarked for this tournament over the next couple of weeks. Alex Zane beat Yoshinobu Kanemaru after hitting the Baja Blast and then his corkscrew senton off of the top, pinning, getting the pin in 11 minutes
the cinnamon
and
twist.
40 seconds. Yes, the cinnamon twist, as Kevin Kelly.
So is his Taco Bell, like the Taco Bell menu, his influence for
that's it? Yeah.
move sets? Wow. Okay.
Yeah, you know what?
Cool.
Some people are inspired by Strong Style, others King's Road, others, Taco Bell. Whatever gets you to this level of your career. Francesco Akira defeated Sho, introducing a number of new moves, including his Speed Fire, and then the last round before hitting the Fireball, which are double knees from behind in 12 minutes and 2 seconds. So Akira looked very good in this match, as did Sho. Like all of these matches were, I thought really pretty much just introductions to really showcase one party going over to me. And Hiromu Takahashi and Ryusuke Taguchi, they had a different match than maybe you would have assumed. It was pretty much a 9.5 minute sprint. There was a lot of Taguchi comedy, but it was him just constantly trying for the hip attack, including right when the bell rang and coming up short. They did these spots where he was chasing after Hiromu and then got winded and nearly passed out and then got caught going for the hip attacks, and Hiromu blocked them with atomic drops, which led to Chris stating that when it comes crashing down, it hurts inside. And then Taguchi pulls his tights down to try and throw off Hiromu. That did not work, and then Hiromu caught him with the Hiromu roll in 9:32. It was kind of goofy, but still held your attention and was short enough that it was like a fast pace for the 9.5 minutes. But, it will depend on your enjoyment of a Taguchi comedy match as opposed to your serious Taguchi match that I think we'll get at least a few of in this tournament. And then it was headlined by Taiji Ishimori, pinning Yo, actually submitting him, pretty much worked on the shoulder throughout the match, and that set up the bone lock at the end in 16 minutes and 14 seconds. Really good main event, I thought, in this one, with Yo coming up short against the champion and just establishing Taiji Ishimori as the guy to beat in the tournament coming off his title win. So a pretty good first night of the tournament, and then the B block kicks off on Tuesday morning with the tournament running until June the 4th. And Wai Ting is so excited about the next B block set of matches that he is off to make sure that he bookmarks New Japan World for Tuesday morning. But we still have a show to do, Way. You got to have some patience before the Best of the Super Juniors.
I think we jinxed ourselves with our last conversation there.
You know what? We're not making any promises. We're not New Japan. But then after that, we have, what is next? We have
the NBCU.
That's right.
Fox.
So the NBC Universal upfront presentations were this morning, and WWE was sending Roman Reigns and Charlotte are going to the Fox upfront presentation, which is later this afternoon, and Bianca Belair and The Miz were at the NBC Universal presentation this morning. I did not see any news on the WWE front, but what is worth noting is, first off, in this article in Deadline, they reported that NBCU is now shifting Raw to as kind of live sports when it comes to sales. So that is an interesting shift that they are making. And based off the comments of Stephanie McMahon-Levesque in this article is that they are still presenting themselves as entertainment, but also as sport. We're both. So whatever gets us more money, we are.
Whichever is more convenient for them to pivot to. Maybe at some point there'll be reality TV, or what other genres are there?
I don't know.
Comedy?
They can't be live animation. That would be tough to argue.
Or can they?
Maybe. We're everything.
Everything.
She stated, we can script the buzzer beater moments. And I cannot tell you how many times Way and I go live right after Raw. And I'm sweating from, Way went right down to the wire tonight on Raw. That was sensational.
What does it say when they claim to be able to script these incredibly dramatic moments, yet every single week we have a complete lack of it? Is it just them not wanting to? They can. We just don't really want to every week.
It's interesting, and they were talking a bit about this on WrestleNomics, kind of the pros and cons of being scripted or in terms of live sports where there's so many like actual reality situations that can happen that you can't predict. And in some ways WWE can control that. In other ways, there's certain things that happen whether you're watching a UFC or the NBA or the NHL that you can't control what the outcome is going to be. And I think there's positives and negatives to both. You would think in the case of a UFC, like you go back to the first season of The Ultimate Fighter, if you found a Chris Lieben, you would want this guy to go to the finals and win and go challenge for a title. They could not do that because ultimately you can have the greatest character in the world, but he has to go out there and win his fights. And in pro wrestling, as long as you can identify the star, well, then you can just tailor the path in such a way that can maximize audience engagement, and you don't have to worry about your top star going out there and losing a big match. Sometimes they choose to do that, which is baffling at times. But I mean, pro wrestling has many advantages in the sense that your audience can accept it as quote unquote sport, but it is a controlled one where like that can be a great benefit when you know where you're going and just identifying who your stars are.
Theoretically, right? And that's what these upfronts to me kind of represent, and what Stephanie McMahon's comments represent is the benefit that professional wrestling offers in theory. In execution is a completely different story, and all the obstacles preventing them from achieving the potential of these great things like these buzzer beater moments are unfortunately and obviously not being presented in these types of conversations to a mainstream audience, or a casual audience, I should say. But it's not really about that. You are selling potential at this point when you're talking to advertisers.
The final paragraph of this Deadline story was something else. Unlike pro sports leagues, the WWE is structured in a way that favors streamlined deal-making with sponsors, McMahon said. No players' unions, team owners, stadium authorities, or agents needing to sign off on activations. Instead, a one-stop shop available for creative executions. Quote, we own all of the IP, she said. When brands deal with us, they just deal with us. We create something together. Together meaning not with the consent of our talent, who do not have any voice in any of this, who we outright own. And I say that non-facetiously. Like, that is a huge advantage that the WWE, that the UFC has, to an extent, like AEW as well. Like, you are not dealing with a players union that has to sign off when there's going to be in-house advertising, when there is going to be, you're structuring your television rights partners and you have to cut in revenue for your players. Like, there is none of that. You can set your scale. So when business is great, you can change, but when business is bad, you can control your expenses when it comes to talent, which are, exceptionally lower than compared to major league sports.
Yeah. I mean, this is, sort of more the Marvel argument that we've heard them make comparisons to in the past as well, where, we're not like the NBA. We don't necessarily, who doesn't own LeBron James's licensing. They do own Roman Reigns. They do own the name, Sasha Banks, much in the same way Marvel owns a Captain America or Iron Man. So in their perspective, this is when it's more convenient. But, we could say maybe, like, I'm curious, like, is it the same for AEW? Who does AEW own a John Moxley, for instance? Like, if they were to make a John Moxley action figure or a John Moxley lunchbox, is there a different set of rules or maybe payouts that are associated with somebody who comes into the company with their own name?
Well, in those cases, like, we will see, especially it will be intriguing with, like, the video game of how talent is figured into that. But when it comes to, AEW's next, I'm more so talking about, like, the revenue sharing, that, it's pretty much at the discretion of the promotion. They have the means that they can pay their talent more. One would assume if AEW gets an increase in rights, that they will theoretically have a larger pool to spend on talent, but that is not figured in. It is not like we guarantee 35% of our revenue goes to talent. That's totally at your decision, and that's a great advantage. And I would say, from a selfish standpoint, if you're a WWE or a UFC or an AEW, would you seriously be staying up at night worrying about your talent getting together and forcing your hand? Historically, no. Like, that's something that they are not being pressed on. So a company is going to act in that sort of understanding that this is something we don't have to worry about friction with our talent, because it's not a realistic threat.
Not yet. Yeah. Not unless maybe another promoter comes along and maybe, uses it as maybe one of their calling cards to try to lure talents away. And we shall see if that ever comes to fruition. But another just thing of note is the continued Stephanie promotion of this Army of the Dead crossover thing that they've done, and how proud she continues to seem to be. And you know what, by the monetary figures that might have been exchanged, maybe that is something that they should be proud of. But
she watches this match once a month. Just sit back, look at that IP.
Look
at it come to life.
I honestly have to question how much wrestling she continues to watch at all, because I think if she saw any of the public reaction to this match from casuals and hardcores alike, I think it would be the first sign to tell you that it's not necessarily promotion that creates the most positive feelings for the brands that you're advertising. But then again, how many people are looking that deep into it at these presentations?
That's the fictional series I want. Take a chief brand officer, Stephanie McMahon, and put her in, like, 1986 Mid-South, and she is the chief brand officer of Mid-South, working with Bill Watts. That would be something. Talking about the IP of Junkyard Dog and how they can leverage this for maximum consumer value. Also coming out of the NBC announcements, its fall schedule is out, and Young Rock will be moving from Tuesday nights to Friday nights in November. It's going to be part of a 1-hour comedy block that they are introducing on Friday nights. So from 8 till 8:30, they will be debuting a new series called Lopez versus Lopez, featuring George Lopez, and that will be the lead-in for Young Rock at 8:30 Eastern. So for West Coast viewers, that will be going head-to-head with Friday Night SmackDown, which is more so interesting in the sense that... Yes, on the East Coast.
West.
Okay, did I say West Coast? East Coast viewers. So what will be interesting is that the third season, it's going to be more diving into, like, WWE involvement for Dwayne Johnson, and we have seen very little crossover when it comes to Raw promoting Young Rock, but we did get the insert a couple of weeks back when it was the tryout edition for Young Rock of back in 1996. But now you have Young Rock that will be airing on network television head-to-head in a significant portion of the country with SmackDown.
It's kind of interesting, yeah. I mean, I would assume, all the promotion for it probably sticks to USA, and just like any sort of sports property that is advertised on Fox is exclusive on SmackDown, and you have to wonder how happy Fox or how happy the WWE themselves might be, because they are involved in this, aren't they? And going up against another one of their own properties on network TV, but maybe overall, more on TV is better for them.
So today is essentially WWE Upfront Day with its U.S. broadcast partners, and Wednesday will be the Warner Brothers Discovery Upfront presentation, and that will be very noteworthy of the involvement of AEW when it comes to how they are represented on Wednesday. And tonight, Raw takes place from the sold-out Norfolk Scope in Virginia. Bobby Lashley and Omos in a steel cage, sold out way.
It is sold out?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Over 7,200 tickets out for the show tonight.
All right, yeah.
And no NBA tonight, no NHL tonight. They are in the clear. They should be the number one show on cable tonight. So they totally lucked out for tonight.
Yeah, it's a rubber match of this series between Lashley and Omos. I mean, I would hope that we would get some sort of resolution.
They scripted a buzzer beater.
Maybe we get a buzzer beater. Maybe an actual buzzer. That's what wrestling is missing. Buzzers. Forget the ring bell. Change it to a buzzer. All right.
Okay. We could get the horn like on UFC maybe instead.
Siren little thing like in the hockey post. Anyway, 10 o'clock, maybe safe to assume. Do they do the whole countdown again for this match?
That'll be interesting tonight if they do that, especially on a night where you would hope your audience is less divided without sports. But I would think that they should do it again. It looked like it worked last week with Cody Rhodes in theory. And this would probably be the match. I mean, that's the only thing we have. This is the big thing so far tonight on the show. So I would venture to guess they do try it again.
Interesting. Well, we'll see how Omos can hold up, in a high profile featured match. I mean, the cage can harm or could benefit the quality of the match. So we'll see how those two do. We have a couple super chats here to get to before we get out of here, John, and they come to us from Jake from the Windy City, who asks, do we expect any WWE involvement at all at Starrcast?
I was thinking about that afterwards. The knee-jerk reaction is, of course not. But when you think about it, if I was WWE, and would it make sense that you piggyback with another, with a third-party convention and have some kind of involvement there? I don't dismiss the idea at all.
Aren't they doing their own access over SummerSlam?
I don't think they've announced anything. And it was a significantly scaled down version that they had at WrestleMania, which maybe they're looking at it like, why are we going to put all these expenses when, again, we own the IP? Let's just license out some of our talent and let Starrcast pay appearance fees to have a certain level of talent that can appear at these sessions. We make money off of the talent appearances, and we're not incurring all of the costs of booking an arena for 3 days and all of the setup costs that are attached to that. Like, the draw is the talent, and we can just license them out. I don't dismiss that at all as something that is happening. And the fact that this is happening in Nashville over SummerSlam weekend, obviously strategic, and yeah, it would be interesting. I don't dismiss it, even though that's very unlike WWE to work with others.
I mean, when we talk about level of talent, I think maybe that might be the key, because I mean, not for a second do I think any currently active roster members would probably be a part of this. I think your legends can probably continue to take part like they've done in the past, but we're talking about liability issues here. We're talking about this Ric Flair thing, which we don't know what could possibly happen. Would WWE want to be attached to a brand that they don't have complete control over in case, something bad happens?
I mean, it's not like he's their talent that is going out in the ring. I understand what you're saying, but I mean, if you're looking at it from just lending guys out to maybe do a podcast on site or autograph sessions and photo ops, yeah, I don't dismiss it out of hand that there is a financial benefit to WWE, just not assuming any of the risk of having to stage an event and sell tickets to another event that weekend when, the draw is the talent and we can just make our money off of it that way.
We have another super chat here from Felipe from Chile, who sends 2,500 Chilean pesos. Thank you so much for the support, Felipe. He says, Mis amigos, any comment on Leclerc's crash this weekend? John, any new documentaries to recommend? Greetings from Chile. I don't know if you're aware, John. Did you? Charles Leclerc crashed Niki Lauda's 1970 something classic car in Monaco, which, I mean, it was really, I believe, just an exhibition run. You know, sometimes they'll get like maybe drivers, I suppose, to like drive a classic car like through a track just to kind of demonstrate, I suppose. What adds to it is the fact that, I mean, Monaco is the man's hometown. Evidently, and this is just what I'm gathering as a new fan, he's crashed many times in Monaco, and this time around, not only did he crash, it wasn't even a part of a race, and it was also with a legendary race car driver's car. So very embarrassing, but what's enjoyable, of course, is all the memes that follow afterwards. So you can enjoy that, Felipe. We'll see. Maybe this means he won't crash during the race itself. Any new documentaries to recommend, John?
Not new documentaries, although over the weekend I finished rewatching this documentary came out years ago. It was the 30 for 30 doc, The Two Escobars, which to me is one of the best 30 for 30s they've ever put out. And for those, the premise is essentially the rise of Colombian soccer and juxtaposing Andres Escobar, who was one of the star players for Colombia going into the 1994 World Cup, and just removed from the death of Pablo Escobar, and how the drug cartel and the soccer team, the interconnection of the two, and, you know, tragically, Andres Escobar being killed shortly after the World Cup when he accidentally scored on his own net. And this documentary, it's incredible. The resources that they had, the people that they were able to interview on camera, including people very close to Pablo Escobar, family members of Andres Escobar. I think it's a fantastic documentary. And basically coming out of that World Cup, here was Colombia that was like ranked 4th in the world, and their soccer program just plummeted in the wake of this. It's a fantastic 30 for 30.
Absolutely fantastic. Yeah, one I've seen too. Shortly after Narcos, actually, I really got into just a bit of a craze, just learning a lot more about Pablo Escobar. So highly recommended for me as well.
All right. We are going to be back tonight with Rewind to Raw. We'll be live here on the channel at 11 p.m. Eastern, going through the whole show from Norfolk, Virginia. And then this week on the site, we will have, for PostWrestlingCafe.com members, a new edition of Rewind Away, where we are chatting Thursday, Raw Thursday. And we will, I have done a lot of notes for this show. So, folks, we are going to get the whole breakdown of a very famous segment at this time when Shawn Michaels gave up the WWF Championship, what was going on at that time. This is the famous losing his smile speech, which it is certainly, I think you can contextualize much different today than in 1997 and what was going on with this individual. So that will be the lion's share of the discussion on Tuesday. But I think this is a show you'll really enjoy coming up on Tuesday night.
I'm looking forward to it. It's one I haven't seen before, actually, because I wasn't watching wrestling at this time and haven't really had a reason to. So we thank our executive producer, Neil Flanagan, our man Neil, for choosing it, and we'll probably be speaking to him as well.
Yes. So that's coming up Tuesday night. PostWrestlingCafe.com. $6 gets you in the door, and we will have that special show coming out Tuesday. Also, on Thursday, the wellness policy is back. What is on tap for this month, Wai?
Jordan and I will be joined by a special guest named Eli, and we will be talking about comedy. The role of comedy, I would say, maybe in our, well-being, I suppose, perhaps. Maybe a bit of history about it, and maybe a bit of an analysis of, how it operates maybe in our culture today. So, yeah, join us Thursday, 3 o'clock Eastern Time for all Post Wrestling Cafe patrons.
All right. The whole schedule is up at postwrestling.com. All of our regular shows this week. Post Pro Res will be back on Thursday night with myself and WH Park. And then we will have a new NWA podcast this weekend.
I believe so. Yes.
Yes. So all of that you can check out postwrestling.com, and we will speak with you tonight for Rewind to Raw. And that's going to wrap up your Post Daily News Show.